I am Elena Stanciu from B1.ro website, and I'm talking to Jim Kail, President and CEO at Laurel Highland Total Communications, a company focused on connecting rural communities in US to broadband solutions.
We specialize in providing communication services, broadband services in areas that otherwise would be neglected.
We will talk about US and security of Huawei equipment, the impact on operators' business after Huawei ban, and 5G technology. For the beginning, please tell us a few things about your company and about yourself.
Our company we're in Pennsylvania, if you're familiar. I don't know if you're familiar with the United States here, but Pennsylvania is in the northeast part of the U.S. We have 4 small local exchange carriers, provide telephone, video, and internet, broadband. The original company was formed back in 1908. At that time, obviously, we're dealing with a new phone service, the copper. And over the years, obviously, things have changed. And now today, we're dealing with broadband. I started with the company almost 18 years ago. At that time, we put together a plan. Shortly after I arrived, we put together a plan to do fiber to the home. We had an old copper telephone system plus an old coax TV. And since that time, starting in 2003, we started building fiber to the home facilities throughout our rural area. The original company covers about 175 square miles in southwestern part of the state. About 50 miles east of Pittsburgh. And then about 2008, we bought another small company about 25 miles from here, same situated, but it had covered about 8 or 10 square miles. Same deal, they had a copper system, then we put fiber to the home, provided a video solution, high-speed internet. And back in the end of 2013, we acquired another small local exchange carrier company up in northeast part of the state. All of these are rural areas. I mean, rural is a relative term. I mean, Pennsylvania is a pretty populated state. It doesn't compare to a rural area, say out in the Midwest or in the western part of the country. But for us, it's rural. Don't have a lot of density here. In any event, we purchased a company up in northeast Pennsylvania, which is about 20 miles east of Scranton. I'm sure you're probably not familiar with the areas I'm talking about. In any event, that's up towards not too far from, maybe about 90 miles from New York City. 2 years ago, we purchased another small exchange carrier about 30 miles from that company we bought up in northeast Pennsylvania. Same situation. We buy these companies and then we put a plan in to put fiber to the home, high-speed broadband internet. The way our system works, we rely on a universal service program, which is administered by the Federal Communications Commission. There's not a business case to build in these areas because of the low density. However, the purpose of the universal service program is to make service affordable, and yet, regardless of where you live, to make it affordable and have access to high-speed internet, which is basically what we're dealing with today. It's a broadband service, and companies like ours throughout the country, this is how it's done. Again, we rely a lot on the universal service program in order to be able to provide this service. The company we're talking about here that uses a Huawei solution, we used a couple different solutions. But in the case of this, it's referred to as South Canaan Telephone Company. That's the company up in northeast Pennsylvania that we bought back at the end of 2013. And at that time, we had made contact with representatives from Huawei shortly before we bought that company. And then after, in 2014, we met the Huawei reps back in 2013. And then in 2014, we decided to go with their solution in this one particular exchange area, and that's over the past 6 years, we built a fiber to the home system using the Huawei solution. So kind of give you an idea about our background.
Okay. I know that you worked for many years with Huawei equipment. What made you choose Huawei?
What made us choose Huawei? It's always good to have competition have alternative solutions, right? So we were using, as I said, we were using another vendor, and always trying to find the best, most efficient way to get these services, to deploy these services. As I said, we kind of ran into the Huawei. I met the Huawei sales reps at a national, one of our conferences. I belong with associations we belong to that represent small phone companies, small communications companies, and then that's when Huawei just started getting into the rural area. And so we met with these people, and at that time, like I said, we just were about to acquire another small company that needed this fiber solution. So, based on what we, looking at the Huawei product, it was price, very, very, very attractive price. Of course, at that time, I didn't know who Huawei was. I mean, they had no presence as far as, in rural America. So, yet they were a large company. At that time, I think they had like 60 billion in revenues, and they were anxious or very anxious to do business with small companies. And that's very unusual for a company our size, this small, to have a company that size hungry to do business with us. They had a vested interest in trying to get this to work right in rural America, kind of open up a door for them to get into the U.S. market. So that on their end, that's what they had going for them. But again, it was the price. We didn't know about the quality at the time, so we kind of took a chance. But the price was very attractive, and like I said, it's good to have competition. It keeps your existing competitors on their toes, and so that those are kind of reasons behind it. And since that time, when we made that decision, the quality has proved to be very, it's very, very reliable. The support has been very good as well. So it's worked out well outside of this situation we're dealing with today. But anyway, go ahead.
Would you make the same decision again as a long-time user of Huawei technologies? Are you satisfied with the performance of their equipment and with its safety in terms of cybersecurity?
As far as the reliability, it's extremely reliable. It's been a high quality product, very competitively priced. From all that standpoint, I would make that decision again. However, with all the political things that are going on right now, and the fact that we can't do business because we can't order any new equipment. If I knew how it all played out, of course I wouldn't make the same decision. But strictly from the quality of the product, the pricing, and the support, if you take out the political aspects, yes, it makes good economical sense to go with that solution. But right now, it's been a lot of extra, a lot of additional hassles involved with this, and now we're at a point now where we have to eventually rip and replace the equipment that's that we have deployed.
So, do you consider there is any hidden danger of network security in Huawei equipment?
We don't have any proof that there is, but I'm not. My background's not technical, but no one has presented any proof that there is any potential problems with it. At the same time, I understand the concerns about the Chinese government. Obviously, they don't. We have major philosophical differences on how our governments, our form of government. I'm not a proponent of China, and never was. But the idea is, the big question is Huawei an arm of the Chinese government? And that's kind of what we're hearing is that they can't be trusted. But no one's come forth with any proof outside of thinking, just saying. We know how the Chinese government does business, and they can't be trusted. So, but if I did have hard proof, I've said this in many interviews, if somebody was able to give me hard proof that there was a security issue that were jeopardizing our network, then we would have taken the appropriate steps to remove the equipment ourselves. So, but I have no proof that there's been any problems here with what we've been doing from a cybersecurity standpoint.
Last year, the U.S. government has put Huawei on the EL list. What has been the trouble for your cooperation with Huawei?
Well, the trouble is that we can't get any more equipment. So obviously, Huawei's not doing any business. Their business is dried up. The people that we dealt with from Huawei are no longer there because there's no sales. They're not able to make sales here in the U.S. A lot of uncertainty has been created because, as I said, we're in a situation now where it's just a matter of time before we're going to have to replace the equipment. Not only can we not do business with Huawei, even if we wanted to, but now we're dealing with the situation. We're going to have to find an alternative solution to replace the equipment that we have deployed.
Okay. Also, the U.S. government will continue to issue a 90-day interim license so that Huawei could continue to serve U.S. operators like you. There is news that the next 90-day temporary license will no longer be released. What is your comment about that?
I don't know how that's going to affect us, and we're given the fact that we can't order any new equipment. We're in a situation now in this company I mentioned, South Canaan Telephone, which is up in the Northeast Pennsylvania, where we are doing installs of fiber high-speed internet, and we're running out of the ONTs, the equipment that goes into customers' homes. So we can't really do business now. So I mean, this whatever's going to happen about the termination of whatever the U.S. is doing on the extensions, that we're already, it's not. I don't think it's going to affect us because we've already been impacted by what's happening, because we can't order any new equipment, and it's been that way for a number of months now. And so we're at a situation where the point now where in order to keep our continue to roll out the broadband service, we're going to have to find an alternative solution because we have demand for our service, but again, we're running out of existing stock of the Huawei equipment. And on top of that, in addition to that, is the question: if we put this out there deploy it, we're going to have to replace it within a year or so, whatever it is. We're still waiting for the specific rules dealing with the rip and replace process.
There have been in U.S. Several network security incidents experienced by major operators. Did you encounter any such issue with Huawei equipment?
No, not that I'm aware of. We haven't had any issues that I know of. We're using the Huawei equipment to provide video and internet. And again, as I said before, there was no evidence that there's been any problems with that from a security standpoint or a spying standpoint that I'm aware of.
The Federal Communication Commission requested Congress to fund $2 billion to help operators to replace Huawei's equipment. Have you received any compensation to replace all the equipment?
The specific rules regarding that process have not been established yet. I understand the FCC has maybe up to a year to come out with how that reimbursement program will work. So as I said, there's a lot of uncertainty as to how things are going to work and the time frame, how much time we would be giving to replace the equipment, and what we'd have to do in order to get the reimbursement. But that's still a ways down the road. Again, we're still waiting for clarification on the rules.
Do you think exclusion of any supplier the best solution when it comes to cybersecurity?
Based on what I know, as I said before, I don't know of any evidence, but that's my background. I'm not a technical person here. All I can do is go by what others are telling me. Obviously, if you're dealing with a Chinese government, and the Chinese government has, if they want to do spying or whatever, and if that's what they're doing, and if there's evidence that that's that they're going to do that or have done that, then I don't see a problem, or it makes sense from a national security standpoint when someone who's trying to do harm to your network or your system, then I understand if that's the case. If you see that, then it makes sense to block any business there. So
the core of your activity is connecting rural communities to broadband solutions. And here in Romania is a country with a strong rural component where digitalization has not yet advanced significantly. Do you think that 5G would contribute to a faster penetration of digitalization in these rural areas, or it could help the development of these areas?
5G in rural areas, at least in our country, is still 5 years or more from actually coming, to be a viable service. There's just not enough density here. My understanding is that there has to be antennas every 800 feet or so, and when you're talking about a wide stretch of rural area with low density, it doesn't make sense for larger companies, the ones that are deploying this 5G, to provide that service in rural areas now. The service is going to start in the urban areas where there's high density, and you put up an antenna and you're going to get a fair amount of, you connect a fair amount of people. Here, if you only have 5 people per mile of cable, or you'd have to be setting these antennas up every 800 feet or so, that's an awful lot of deployment, and you're not getting a lot of customers. You're not connecting a lot of customers. So we don't see that, based on what I'm hearing in our industry. We don't see the 5G being a viable service within the next 5 years or so. Obviously, technology continues to advance, and at some point, of course, it'll obviously likely happen. And we're also talking about satellite. At some point, satellite will be a viable service, but not today. I don't see it happening within the next 5 years.
Okay, but in your opinion, what would mean for a country to be among the first in the world to develop its 5G network?
Well, I'm sure it has its advantages, but from a rural standpoint, I really don't see, to us, fiber to the home, to have a wired service. Even if you do have 5G, if you're ever dealing with a fiber to the home solution, I still see that, at least for the near term, the 5G wouldn't be able to match the quality. That's in my opinion. So to be the first, I don't know. I mean, this is, like I said, from my standpoint, from a rural area, it's really not something I put any weight on.
Do you think that it would have some benefits for its economic competitiveness or attractiveness towards investors?
I think it does, yes, but you're dealing more with large business, I think, and from a small company standpoint, it's above. It's not going to really impact us much. But from a large company standpoint, I'm sure there are definite economic benefits to being on the cutting edge of that service.